The neighborhood is often simply used as a marketing tool, perhaps to express some kind of feel-good idea about social connection, such as in this billboard here, "My neighborhood, my network." I think we need to be honest with ourselves that in many cities, the neighborhood has lost real relevance. It's become a kind of squishy concept, kind of like community or sustainability. The question for us as planners of cities is, what should we do about it, or what can we do about it? When it comes to neighborhood, I think we find ourselves trapped between neighborhood as anything and neighborhoods as something very contrived, such as the image shown on the right. So I want to talk you through a proposal for how planners might think about neighborhoods and use them more productively. For millennia, neighborhoods were not perceptual. They were very real. They were a spatial unit that people belonged to. And that way of understanding of neighborhoods broke down with the rise of the industrial city. After that happened, planners tried to get the neighborhood back through very concerted effort of planning the neighborhood unit. But that effort had its own drawbacks, and I'm going to review some of those drawbacks. So the question now is, how do we get back to a place-based understanding of neighborhood that resolves some of those issues involved with planning the neighborhood and is actually practical for a 21st century world? Jane Jacobs was one of the first to recognize how meaningless neighborhood had become. What she was saying with this famous quote was that for neighborhoods to be real, they really need to have political power. And this power is at different levels. And she proposed a number of different levels, but I'm going to review two of the levels with you that are most relevant for us. Actually, she proposed 3 different levels. I'm going to review 2 of them. The first level she proposed was the street level neighborhood. And that was really very much based on small businesses. And those businesses were embedded in the neighborhood and they served a social function. So the challenge here has to do with the decline of independent retail, mom and pop stores, and the loss of independent ownership has meant a loss of social networking, loss of eyes on the street, loss of social connection, loss of neighborhood-based institutions, and what is known as third places. Another neighborhood level that Jacobs proposed was the district level. And in many cities, those districts don't really correspond very well to neighborhoods that we would traditionally think of. In Chicago's case, these are known as wards, these districts. And you can see the challenge here. The district level neighborhood has no physical place-based meaning. So what we have here is in the middle, in the blue ward, that's actually a Ukrainian village, which is attached to the Gold Coast of Chicago, all in the same district. So there has been a profound breakdown in connecting neighborhood as the spatial unit that people relate to and the neighborhood as something with political power. And it gets worse. We have police precincts, we have political wards, census tracts, school districts, neighborhood associations, business districts, and then I've also mapped out there the 5-minute walk around the elementary school. These are all the different understandings and representations of neighborhood that have evolved over the years, and none of them line up with each other. So this really is completely counter to the idea that neighborhoods are grounded places with organizational ability. So what does a neighborhood need? It needs 3 things. I want to start with this normative definition of what a neighborhood should be. And I'm defining this on the basis of it needing these 3 things to be a neighborhood. Neighborhoods, of course, come in all different shapes and sizes, but a good neighborhood, one that we as planners aspire to, an aspirational neighborhood, has these 3 things. First of all, it has identity. It has a name. Residents know where it is, they know what it is, and they know whether they belong to it. It's not ambiguous. It has at least one place that serves as some kind of center, which can be a building, an intersection, a park. It has a generally agreed upon spatial extent. It doesn't go on forever and ever. It doesn't have really solid boundaries, but it has some idea about how far it extends. It's connected and it's not insular, and that's a second condition of the neighborhood. It has facilities and services that you need for your everyday life, but it's not self-contained. It's able to connect to other places. It's well connected both internally and externally. And part of this connection is social, meaning that it has social diversity within it. Or at least it has a way of opening itself up to diversity. Now, I'll note again that these are aspirational principles of the neighborhood. In fact, the neighborhood not being diverse is one of the key problems that's been associated with neighborhoods, and we'll talk about that in a later chapter. The third thing the neighborhood needs is some kind of collective voice, in the Jane Jacobs sense. So it has some means of representation, it has some way that it can express itself collectively. It has a means by which residents can be involved in it. It has an ability to speak with one voice. And if a neighborhood has all of these things, I call that the everyday neighborhood. This is the aspiration, the definition of neighborhood in 21st century America, and that is that it has all three of these things. So why do we need neighborhoods that have all three of these things? Why does this matter? I'm going to give you 4 reasons. One reason is that our current supply of everyday neighborhoods is pretty scarce. Demand is high. We're loving them to death. Everyday neighborhoods are ground zero for battles waged over gentrification. A second reason is that these qualities foster a sense of ownership and caring. I don't think it's possible to do that, to have that sense of ownership under ambiguous definitions, where neighborhood might be a feeling or just lines on a map or a tailgating party. In this aspirational definition, neighborhoods have services, and those services are part of daily experience. And that ups the chances for social connection, and there's a lot to be gained from increasing social connection. Things like small business success, combating isolation, increasing success for children in school, all of these things have been well documented. And a final reason, and I think the most important reason, is that the everyday neighborhood substitutes place for homogeneity as the basis of neighborhood definition. Place is used instead of class or race in the formation of our neighborhood consciousness. The truth is, we really have few neighborhoods that have these 3 dimensions and that therefore are able to satisfy these 4 goals.